Hi, Jason. How you doing?
Pretty good. I am trying to figure out why you are. Well, I know why. Hang on. I gotta change the setting here right quick. Let's see. Try that. Talk to me.
Hi.
Okay,
Can you
there we
hear
go.
me?
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
you were coming out of the wrong speakers, and I was trying to get that fixed. Is that all?
Nice. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was trying to keep from hollering across the room on the. I use a like it's like a 32-inch TV, and so the
Oh,
sound
nice.
comes
Okay.
back to the microphone and gives weird stuff sometimes. So trying to
Okay.
avoid that. My wife is getting a few things together here. She'll be able.
Alrighty. Yeah, no problem. How's your day been so far?
Crazy.
Mm.
That's the way it is when you have as many kids as we do.
Yeah. So how many kids do you have at home now?
Today, today I think we're at 7.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because our
You
oldest son,
must, yeah.
he came home. He's stationed down at Fort Campbell,
Oh, okay.
Kentucky. And when
Nice.
he got out of the army, but he's staying down there for a little while. But he came. He had one of our other sons staying down there for a couple of weeks with him, and he brought him back up yesterday. So he's going to stay a couple of days. His birthday is coming up here later this week, so he's going to stay up till the end of the week and then head back home to his wife.
Okay. Yeah,
She's home getting a break after having a teenage boy hanging out with him for 2 weeks.
oh boy. Hello.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, we have I work for Defense and Veterans Brain Injury Center. So
Okay.
I'm a regional education coordinator for the Pacific Northwest, but we have someone at Fort Campbell as well, Marcela,
Okay.
my coworker. So, yeah.
Yeah, he worked in the hospital down there. He
Oh,
actually
okay.
took one piece of advice from his dad when I said, "Hey, don't do like me. Go get a job in the army where you can serve your country, but when you become a civilian again, it will serve you."
Yep.
And so he went through their nursing program, and
Good.
he can now
Good
work
kid.
as a nurse with no student loans.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Smart kid.
Yeah,
Smart.
he's got
Good
his
dad
health
too.
done too. Oh yeah, well I could use what I did, but I have to move to Fort Meade, Maryland, and work a half a mile underground. And when I come home from work, and my wife says, "How was your day today, honey?" I'm not legally allowed to answer that question, and I went, "I don't want to do that job anymore. I don't want to do that job."
Yeah, because you can't. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a fun job. Nursing
Yeah,
sounds a
no.
lot funner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know about funner because you end up basically cleaning up a lot of messes of other
yeah,
people's
that's
bodily
true.
fluids, but yeah, a lot better.
You feel good. You feel good about nursing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like.
All right.
Yeah,
Do we sound good on your end at least?
yeah, you do.
It seems like every time I fire the setup up, I have to reset up the EQ for whatever reason. I don't know why, but
Okay.
like today, it had me super muffled. I had to turn the bass way back, which I never have to do, but today I did.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So, did you have a chance to look at the questions?
I did not see questions come over.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can send those in the
Where
chat here. No big deal. Let me get
see,
those
where did
over.
you
Oh,
send them to? I didn't remember which email I gave you, so.
I think I sent them in the Facebook and in the
Oh,
Zoom invite probably too. Let
okay. I
me
don't think I
just
saw that.
copy them. I know it. I don't always see stuff that when people put it in the invitation either. So let's see. Okay, sending over through the
Yeah.
chat. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no, on Facebook, it just says, "Here's a conversation starter outline for our call."
Yep, those are I didn't want to call them the questions because people don't really like the questions because
But
they're
th-
personal.
after that, it just says, "Look forward to speaking to you."
Oh,
And there's a
okay.
Zoom, yeah, so nothing else came through with it.
Oh, darn it. Maybe I didn't
Yeah.
paste the questions. I apologize.
Gotta love Facebook
I
yeah,
know.
Facebook stuff. There we go. I can see them
Yeah.
now though.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So this is kind of a conversation outline / starter. You can
Okay.
answer what you're comfortable with or talk about what you're comfortable with and leave the rest out. So I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. I work in the field of trauma and, this is second nature for me to talking about like traumatic events and post-traumatic growth. So, but not everybody's the same as me. So I
We
understand.
deal in trauma in our house.
Yeah. I figured with what you were telling me about all the kids always have something going on.
Well, Amanda had a rough background growing up. I was raised in something of a religious cult, and we're
Okay.
foster parents, and so we've dealt with nothing but trauma, and we've adopted the 4 youngest kids out of foster care, and so their stories are fairly traumatic as well. Not to mention the whole story about losing our daughter. So yeah, we have
That's,
trauma on a daily basis.
yeah.
That we
So
do.
tell me, both of you, maybe either one can answer. So what led you to want to be a foster parent?
Well, we both kind of have our own stories.
Okay.
I always wanted to have a lot of children. I grew up taking care of children. I've been basically a mom since I was 5 years old. That's when my first sibling was born. But after a couple of pregnancies, I wasn't able to have any more children. I had some really rough deliveries and ended up, after our second son, had to have a partial hysterectomy.
Okay.
So at that point, I always told him, well, we're just going to adopt. I'm still going to get all my kids. We're going to have a big family. We're just going to adopt. And I would say that to him kind of jokingly, knowing that we could never, especially at that point in time, we could not afford to adopt.
Yeah.
Adoption was just too expensive. So I would joke with him from time to time, and every once in a while I'd look on an adoption website, and just kind of cry and feel bad about myself, and thinking, here I am, a woman, this is what I'm supposed to do, and my body won't let me do it. And eventually one day, his part of the story comes in.
Well, I was raised in a religious cult. I call it a cult. My mom gets mad when I say that. So don't tell her I called it a cult, please. But it was a cult. It wasn't one of the like super scary ones, but they had a lot of cultist tendencies. And when I left the house, I pushed away from religion pretty hard. And I spent the next decade and a half doing everything that they told me not to do, and figured out why the good book says, don't be a drunkard. That stuff hurts. And I guess I should ask, is this a clean show?
No, this is fine. You
Okay.
could be yourself.
Well, I have two voices, one I use with kids and one I use outside away from the home. And that one's got some experience with colorful language. So I try to keep it tied down when I can. But,
Okay.
but no, I did all the stuff that I was told I shouldn't do and found out exactly why. And so years later, me and Amanda had met, we'd become parents. And, just as about a little over a decade ago, I was riding down the road and I was kind of deciding some things about faith, or at least trying to, I guess. And what I figured out was that as I was listening to a radio program, do you know who Dr. Dobson is? Dr. James Dobson?
That name sounds familiar.
Focus on the Family was a radio program that was on like Christian radio stations for years. And Dr. James Dobson, I always liked listening to him because he at least had he wasn't one of the fire and brimstone guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up with enough fire and brimstone to be, turned off to that. And he was talking about kids in foster care. He was talking about kids who needed adoption. And he gave out this statistic that if one person out of every third church in America would adopt a child out of foster care, the foster care system would be empty tomorrow. And I went, wow. And I started feeling a little self-righteous. And I'm like, see, all you people want to talk about how high and mighty you are. Way to go. You can see what you're not doing. I've read that book quite a few times. You do that in a cult. And I've read it a lot. And I know what it says about taking care of orphans and widows. It's in there quite a bit. Why aren't you doing that? And as I'm sitting here being self-righteous and high and mighty, this voice in the back of my head says, what are you doing, asshole?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thought. That's a curious question. And so I found myself kind of thinking about that. At the time, I was writing an opinion article for our local newspaper. And I was writing an article. It was about Christmas time. And I was looking for places where people could donate to the local community and help people locally and, to have a real good local impact. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to go down and talk to the people down at Department of Children's Services and see what they have to say. And when I walked away from there, the gal had not only answered my questions, but I walked away with a packet full of papers about foster care. And I had just had this moment, one day, just recently before this. And so I came home and brought it to Amanda and said, hey, this is what they gave me down there. This is what we were talking about a little bit. And I don't know, what do you think? The next thing I know, I think she had a rope around my neck dragging me to classes like the next day.
That's great.
Quite the next day, but pretty close.
It was pretty close. Usually people will wait for months a lot of times to be able to get into a class that's near them that they can attend. And it was literally within a couple weeks, I think.
Well, and we really stayed on our licensing worker and all that, because you do get lost in the paperwork. And if you're not actively pursuing it, they've got other things to do. They've got kids that need help,
Yeah.
And so we were kind of very active in pursuing that. And, our very first placement was a brother and sister, and they were also our first adoptions too.
Okay. So you have natural children as well as a brother and sister foster child
We have
children?
almost every type of child you can imagine. Our oldest daughter was, legally speaking, Amanda's half sister. They
Okay.
shared a mom. Their mom had a lot of addiction issues. She lived in our house for years and years. She called me dad. She called Amanda mom. She was our oldest daughter.
Okay.
And then when me and Amanda got married, she brought a young boy into the equation. It was her son. And his dad had bounced, and I came in, and I was just always dad. And then we had a son together. So we had a biological together. And then we had fosters, and then we adopted some. And now we have fosters again on top of. So I don't know if there's any other type of kid you can have.
That's wonderful. So you've had a lot of different experience with a lot of types of family, and what it means to be a family is such a broad spectrum for you. You've welcomed a lot of people in your home.
Yeah, we don't fit the standard definition.
Yeah.
But we're okay with that.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. And you can tell when you see us because, I have a couple lights on me that are kind of washing me out, but I'm what I like to call ambiguously brown. Amanda is Irish pale. And we have mixed kids. We have kids lighter than me, darker than me. We have kids that are whiter than her. And we live in a small town in the middle of Missouri here. And we raise a few eyebrows once in a while, but the area is actually fairly diverse. But yeah, we there's no question about whether or not our family has some questionable DNA between us.
Okay. Good. So now you mentioned, do you mind if we talk about the story of your daughter?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. You mentioned that she's no longer with you. And can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we're coming up on the 5th year anniversary. This July 27th will be 5 years.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody is a sports fan anywhere around the Midwest, but the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup. You can tell I'm not much of a sports fan. But throughout their run to the Stanley Cup this last year, I guess it was, as they were doing that, they had a little girl from Children's Hospital who was prominently featured in a lot of their advertisements. Her name was Layla. And Layla, as soon as I saw the first ad with her, I knew exactly what she had. You could tell once you've been there, once you've done it, you can see it. And, when I saw the screen and it said hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis, which is a big, ugly mouthful, and the fact that I could pronounce it means, I know what she has.
HLH.
Yeah. HLH is, if anybody wants to look it up, HLH is what you'll find it under. The Mayo Clinic has a pretty in-depth article that will tell you all the scary stuff about it. HLH is usually found in infants, and it's usually diagnosed post-mortem. They think it's SIDS, something like that, but they're very young. It attacks them, and they're very quickly gone. And they don't know it was until after the fact. So the scientists don't know a lot about it.
Okay.
They can't study it.
She had secondary HLH.
Yeah. So hers was brought on either by some sort of
virus.
Yeah, viral infection on top of it, or it was something that they didn't necessarily understand 100%. There's a lot of questions around it. But the fact that everything that they got out of her experience is something that I know they used with that little girl Layla as we watched her.
And there's not a whole lot of research. It is a very rare condition.
Yeah.
So they flew in specialists to study our daughter.
Well, they flew them in just to be able to diagnose
her. But then they also flew in specialists to try to learn from her.
Okay. And this was, so Layla is your biological daughter?
Well, no, Arissa is our biological daughter, but the little girl that Jason was talking about she's created a lot of fame around the disease. It's brought a lot of wealth and knowledge to the disease, but without our daughter going through it in Layla's hometown, there wouldn't be that awareness. There wouldn't be trials and studies, and Layla would not be thriving like she is.
Yeah, because I could watch, and it was obvious when they were hardened to the steroid courses. They talked after the fact. Of course, they don't talk about it while it's going on, but they talked after the fact about the bone marrow donor and all that, and all these are the things that they were trying with Arissa, because Arissa was 17 when she got sick. That's why she was at the Children's Hospital. She passed when she was 18, but she was 17 when she first got sick. And I remember a little too well. It was Halloween night. The kids, our oldest son and Arissa and a bunch of their friends had a band. And by band, I mean screaming, yelling, death metal, noisy, the stuff every parent loves to listen to.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they had a show they were playing at a little small venue down in St. Louis, and I'd taken them down there that night. And as they're playing, Arissa was complaining about not feeling well and being sick, and in the middle of the show, she drug a trash can over by her before it started, and she's like throwing up as she's playing the drum set. And I'm like, damn girl, what's wrong with you?
She was an awesome drummer. She was actually featured on MTV's Made.
Yeah, the TV show Made.
Nice.
So she's a female drummer, and yeah, while she was playing their set, she was throwing up, and come to find out, as she was throwing up, she was throwing up blood on stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the first time she ever encountered any symptoms of HLH.
Correct.
Yeah.
And in fact, it took a few weeks of diagnosis, as she was in a regular hospital for about 2.5 weeks before they transferred her out to Children's Hospital.
And when she got to Children's, she was in such bad shape that they put her in a medically induced coma for
we hadn't even
10
made
days.
it. We spent 11 days in the induced coma, but we didn't even make it at Children's Hospital for 24 hours before they had to put her to sleep in order to let her body rest for a little bit.
Yeah, they said, they put her in a medically induced coma just so that they could keep her alive long enough to diagnose what was wrong with her and begin to try and work on it.
And how long did she?
Yeah.
And how long did she suffer with this until the time she passed?
About 9.5 months.
9.5 months. Okay.
We got her to bone marrow transplant. We made transplant. They found a donor. But at that point, the actual donation was successful, but her body had no immune system and was just too weak. And she ended up catching a fungal infection that spread to her brain and her lungs.
Okay.
And they were never able to get ahead of it after that.
Okay. Now, it sounds like a really challenging ordeal that your family and you've went through. So now what would you tell other people that are going through something similar? And are there any tools that you've discovered by going through this event?
Hold fast to one another.
Enjoy each moment you have.
Yeah. Not even necessarily enjoy, just
Breathe.
Don't forget to reach out for support. Have somebody by your side that can support you. And I can tell you everything you shouldn't. Well, maybe not everything, but I can tell you some things you shouldn't do. The bottle's not your friend. Somebody once tried to convince me there was a genie at the bottom of a bottle of whiskey, and I checked it out. I've looked at all of them. I drank to the bottom. She's not there. It's a lie. I kind of went on I've never been terribly good with dealing with emotions myself anyways, as a lot of men are. And I had teenage kids in the house who just lost their sister. Teen suicide's real. I've got to be able to deal with that. I've got to have my eyes open. Amanda was hurting real bad. That was real.
Yeah.
And I knew that what was going on in me was real. And the only thing I could think to do was to kill it with alcohol.
Well, we had also, in the process of losing our daughter, we also lost Jason's father.
Okay.
Yeah. My dad passed away. Actually, when he was coming home on hospice, I think it was his last day in the hospital because he had cancer. And his last day in the hospital is actually when Arissa was going into the hospital.
When we were transferring to Children's.
So yeah, I had just lost my dad, and I had a real close relationship with my dad.
Okay.
We had, that was a good relationship. But as he passed away, our daughter's in Children's Hospital going through all this. So I had grief on top of grief. And so, you do like any normal person, you just have a drink to take the edge off.
Yeah.
You have another drink. And it got to the point of about a fifth of whiskey a night.
Okay.
And I was
you're still able to function, it sounds like, or?
I was a highly functional alcoholic for a little while. I mean, I would get up every day, go to work. I mean, I go to work get up at 2:00 in the morning, go to work and work 10 to 14 hours a day and come home. And I come home to a house full of kids because at the time we had 5 kids in the house. Yeah, we had 5 kids in the house. Mm-hmm. And Arissa's biological mom and dad were both pretty deep in their addictions, and they weren't allowed to stay up at the hospital. Okay. And so Arissa had asked that either Amanda or our oldest son stay up there. And so they would take turns staying the night up there all week long. And so I'm home taking care of 5 kids after a 14-hour workday.
Mm-hmm.
And then, at the end, by the time you get them in bed, you need to take the edge off. And so there goes another bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
And I did that for quite a while.
How long did you say you did that?
I've never really, sat down and thought about it, it was probably close to a year.
Okay. And what got you away from that and into recovery?
You know, I had been raised being told that if you look at a bottle of wine or a glass of wine, you're going to go to hell, more or less.
Mm.
And so, I'd had that guilt thing in me, and I was still trying to fight that. And I knew that what I was doing wasn't working. I found myself in a real dark place, because the thing about alcohol is it will take the emotions away. It'll take most of the bad away, except for the anger and rage. That one stays, but it dulls it.
Mm-hmm.
Then it takes all the good emotions away.
Yeah.
My world had gotten really gray, and I found myself in a couple places and a couple mindsets where I went, ooh, I'm getting dark.
Yeah.
I'm getting scary. And then one day we were sitting at the kitchen table, and Amanda said the right thing at the right moment, and my head was in the right place to hear it. And I thought, you know what? I think it's time to turn this off. Yeah, I went into it intentionally attempting to be able to kill my emotions so I could deal with everybody else and help them deal with theirs.
Yeah.
And I realized that my good intentions had turned to where they were hurting those people, and that was not my original plan. So as I tried to turn that off, I was thinking about that over the next day or so. And my oldest son, who at the time had gone off to the Army, he was coming home over Christmas break, and he said, "Dad, when I come home, I'd like to sit up on New Year's Eve and have a nice cigar and a glass of whiskey." I said, "You know what? That sounds like a reasonable way to end this. Let's do this intentionally." And I'd found a group online. It's called what was called the Good Dad Project at the time. He's got a Facebook page. I think it's a Dad Edge now, but he had a podcast, and he talked a lot about dad stuff. And I'd found all that. And on the podcast, he had a guy on there, Rory Fairbanks, who was talking about a project he had called 1 Year No Beer. Just decide to go alcohol free for a year. I thought that's what I need to do. I need to do that. So New Year's Eve, me and my son sat up, and we had a nice glass of whiskey, and actually bought decent whiskey that night instead of the rot gut. We had a nice glass of whiskey. We smoked a nice cigar, and we said, okay, I set the glass down and said, next New Year's Eve, no more. And I'd done that, and I got to the end of that year, and I said, it's been a year. I made my goal. I could go buy a bottle of whiskey now, and I'm pretty sure I'll find the bottom of it right away. I need a bigger goal. And so I said, I need 1,000 days. That was what I eventually decided. I'm going to go for 1,000 days. And that was last September, I think September 26th.
Okay.
And when I got to that point, I said, I had a friend of mine who was actually in the dad's group I talked about. And his name's Jason McKenzie. And he's a Canadian guy, and he loves to cuss when he talks a lot of times. And I love Jason because he says, man, I just got a question for you. Can you just tell me one way how fucking alcohol has ever fucking served you? And I thought, I'm just like, well, yeah, but I'll think about it. And I never could come up with an answer there. And I just kept holding on to that there was no way it had served me. Yeah, it helped me get through some of the hard stuff, but it didn't had turned negative in the middle of all that. And I realized that. And after we had gone through so much struggles, as we went through Arissa's sickness and her death and the funeral, and through her death and funeral, I'd actually sobered up for that whole time and just said, I'm not drinking anything for that. But other than that, I spent a lot of that time, in a place that wasn't helpful to the people around me. And I'd done some damage, and I realized it was time to change my life. And it just, at that point, I look back and I go, man, it's never made me a better person in any way.
Okay. So you got a lot of strength out of setting those goals and from that dad's group. And now going back to your son, who's a nurse, you mentioned in the Army, do you think he chose that path because of your daughter's illness?
Absolutely.
And to help, because you're such caring people, and he was modeling that behavior?
Absolutely. He had a different goal before he went into the Army. He was going to deal in mortuary services. But after being at the hospital all the time with his sister, he would stay 3 and 4 days, and I would come in daily to meet with the doctors and stuff, but he would spend the night. And then I would take him home because he wasn't even driving at that point. We had to lie about his age for him to be able to stay in the room with her. He wasn't even 16 at that point. He was just getting ready to turn 16, so he would spend a few days. I would come in and spend the nights, and we switched back and forth. And then after she passed away, that's when he decided that, yeah, I'm going to be a nurse. This is what I'm pursuing. And he's decided that his end goal is pediatric oncology.
Wow. That's amazing.
HLH is treated very similar to cancer.
Okay.
It's not the same, but the treatment course is very similar.
Okay.
And so his goal is to actually be back at Children's Hospital at someday. Yeah.
Wow. So
To get back there.
That's, her illness and was a catalyst for him doing something like that in his life and going on to help other people. He's already probably helped hundreds of people through his work as an Army nurse. And her illness also, made you realize that you don't want to drink again. You want to be more connected to the family, that you have other ways of dealing with your emotions. So she was a catalyst for your change.
In a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways. Yeah. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. And, there was that, he, as a matter of fact, he's out of the Army now. And as a civilian, he's been working with
with children with special needs.
Yeah, it's a
medically fragile children.
Okay.
In-home care sort of a thing. And he works with a young guy who's got a lot of significant difficulties, everything from seizure disorders and well, a whole bunch of stuff. I couldn't even tell you what all it is, but he works with a little guy who's got a lot of issues and medical difficulties, and that's a direct response from that, and one of another thing, one of Arissa's dying wishes was, Amanda and her were technically half sisters. They shared a mother. Arissa had a half sister through her father that was not really biologically connected, and she had a little boy. She also had a bad heroin addiction, and little guy stayed with us a lot. And her dying wish was, she said, "Take care of little man." Actually, at the time, I think it was Fat Man, wasn't it?
Yeah, take care of Fat Man.
It was Fat Man. And,
yeah,
we had been doing foster care for a number of years. And he ended up coming into the system, and we were able to get him to come, get to where he could come to our house at about a year old. And that was kind of one of our driving forces as we went forward with that is, if his biological mom can't get her stuff together enough to take care of him, he's going to be with us. And how long ago has it been now?
Well, he's no longer called Fat Man.
Yeah.
And he's currently 6 years old, and he's in the other room.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
that's
this is
good.
his permanent home.
Nice.
Yeah. Adoption was finalized.
He was 2, right?
3.5 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
3.5 years ago.
How was the adoption process? I know that's something that a lot of people struggle through.
We do we've done foster care for a decade. So we have a lot of experience with that side of it, because he came into foster care. And so that's how we were able to bring him to our home. And the foster care system, once you've joined it and you have some experience, it's not nearly as scary as people think it is. That's part of the reason why we started our podcast is we tell stories about kids in care and struggles like that. And as a matter of fact, we told his story, which is a pretty harrowing story, actually. That little dude's got a story.
Yeah.
But he came to stay with us at 1, and mom just never could get it together enough to string some clean drug tests together, to get any visits to do. She just couldn't get the work done that needed to be done so she could take care of him. And so at the end of it, when the state said it's been long enough and you're not doing this, and they chose to terminate her parental rights, at that point he's free for adoption. And we said, hey, right here.
Yeah.
He's been with us more or less since birth, except, his first year, when he wasn't with her, he was with us.
Yeah.
So, it was just not a question. He was going to stay with us.
Well, and I was there when he was born too. I was in the room when he was born. And actually, I held him before his biological mother did, before she even wanted to hold him.
And it sounds like they want the kids with somebody that will care for them, that's known them, that is familiar with them, right?
Like,
yeah.
If at all possible, yes. They want some sort of family or close friends of the family. That's optimal.
Yeah, relative, or what they call fictive kin, which is a term I hadn't heard until recently, but basically friends of the family who've been around enough that they're kind of considered family, even though there's not blood shared.
Okay.
But
So
But yeah,
tell,
here in Missouri, the foster care system, if you adopt a kid through the foster care system, the state actually takes care of the legal fees.
oh, very nice.
So as
Yeah,
far as cost, it didn't cost us anything extra to do it. I mean, it's cost us a lot extra to do it. I mean, let's be honest, raising a kid ain't cheap.
very
I
true.
mean, you do put out money in the beginning, but it's reimbursed to start the process and things like that.
Yeah, but we went through the whole process, and it really wasn't terrible. A little bit nerve wracking, just because that's the thing about it. You never know where it's going to go.
Yeah. So tell me more about your podcast and where people can find you on social media.
Well, as I came out of my alcohol induced sort of stupor, I realized that we had closed our foster license. We just left it open enough to be able to take care of the kids who were in our house at the time, but we were grieving so hard we knew we had to stop. We had to
Yeah.
put a hiatus there, and I just felt like I wasn't doing anything positive, and just not drinking wasn't enough for me. And so I started looking around, and the idea of a blog came up, and I started trying to play with that, and then I looked on, I'm like, it's not that hard to start a podcast. We could tell stories. I mean, we got 1,000 stories. And so I started and tried to make a few episodes, and it sucked pretty hard. And as I wanted to tell Turtle stories specifically, I asked the man, no, that was Carl's story we were doing. And I asked her, I said, hey, can you sit down with me and just help me brainstorm through this? And so we brainstormed through the whole story. I said, well, you want to read through some of this? You want to talk through some of this with me? She said, I guess. And she's been in that chair ever since.
Nice.
And yeah, she doesn't always like to be in front of a microphone or a camera, but
I get a little nervous from time to time.
That's understandable. Yeah.
it's given us a lot of room to be able to tell stories from different perspectives and talk about kids and talk about their stories and talk about the workers who work so hard or the ones who don't. I don't know if you're familiar with the is it Gabriel Fernandez?
Yes.
The Gabriel
Oh,
Fernandez
yes.
story?
Very
Yeah.
high profile.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw that on Netflix. Or I couldn't
Yeah.
bring myself to watch it though.
Yeah, no, it's very, very heartbreaking. I haven't
Yeah.
taught myself to watch all the way through it enough either, and I don't think that I ever will, because we've lived stories like that. I don't have to constantly put that into my head.
No,
But
no,
it's
no.
not good. But
from what I understand in that story, a lot of the blame comes down to the caseworkers who weren't doing. They were saying they were doing the things they weren't, and then the parents were just horrible humans, and well,
Yeah.
drugs can do that to you. Some people
Yeah.
when they get on meth, heroin, those sorts of things, they just not good humans.
Yeah.
And so all that happens, and so the caseworkers get a horrible rap. But the truth is, there's amazing caseworkers out there. We've
Yeah.
met some of them.
oh yeah,
So we try and tell those stories. We try and tell the stories of adoption. We try and highlight the need for caring adults to put aside the idea that I could never do that. It would hurt too much when they go home.
Mhm.
Because if it hurts, you're the people we need doing it. I mean, it does hurt.
it's
You know.
supposed to hurt.
I
Yeah.
mean,
You're supposed to give your all. You're supposed to give your heart.
right here over my heart, I have a picture of a baby who stayed with us for his first year of life, tattooed on me there. I've got a
Mhm.
couple other kids over here tattooed that were with us for a year and a half. And some of those, they were hard,
I
but
bet.
but they were worth it.
And
They
you
were worth
don't get a chance to see them again, right? Is that how it goes?
No.
Some families do choose to stay connected, but very few and far between. And
Okay.
parents don't want to be reminded
Yeah.
of their failures.
Yeah, they don't want to hear
Yeah.
about their worst day.
Yeah, exactly. That makes
I
You know,
sense.
and a lot of times we do a lot of younger children that are not going to remember us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It really is okay. But the thing is it will hurt if
Mhm.
you're doing it right, and you're going to give your heart, and that hurts when they go home. You grieve that loss, but children deserve that.
Yeah.
They need adults to say, "You're my world,"
Mhm.
And so the thing is yeah, a lot of people say, "I can't do that. I could never do what you do." Well, that's fine. If you can't do what I do, then you can do something else. You can donate your time. You can, if you know a family, you can agree to give them a date day so they get time out. Go
Mhm.
grocery shopping for them.
Date day? What's that?
Exactly. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can do, and to be able
Yeah.
to shed some light on that and to tell stories so that people do know that there is other sides to this world than just fostering.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always a way to reach. So as we were working through that, we started telling some of these stories, and I'd love to tell you how wildly popular we are and how we're so successful. I honestly, I don't know how to tell you what success means in the numbers of downloads or anything. And all the people I know, because I know a guy who's got over 1 million downloads on a podcast he runs, and he can't tell you what normal is, what successful is. And we've just gotten to the point where we're just doing this because it's something we want to do. And we've had a few people reach out to us. We've had actually quite a few people reached out to us at this point. And so I know that if we can make a difference, we can encourage somebody to step into a place, do something that sets their soul on fire, that helps kids. I mean, let's be honest. Kids are going to be the ones making the policy decisions that affect our healthcare when we're old in nursing homes. Let's treat them right. Let's do the best we can to create the best next generation. Because if we don't, man, we're asking for trouble.
Exactly. No, that's good. Now, what's your podcast called? Can you tell us?
The podcast is called Foster Care: An Unparalleled Journey. The difficult part about that I didn't think about is that you probably have not spelled unparalleled since high school. I know I had not. I have to keep thinking 1 R, 2 L's, 1. Yeah. If you just search for Jason and Amanda Palmer on iTunes, Spotify, whatever, we're on most of them. You should be able to find us that way. Or the website, the easiest place to find us a website is fostercarenation.com. And the podcast are there on the front page. You can find them that way pretty easily. So you don't have to spell my horrible name.
Wonderful. Well, I loved hearing your story, and it really touched me. And it really showed us how Rissa, she was a catalyst for change in your life and your son's life and everybody she touched. And the wonderful work you're doing with foster kids is just amazing. So I encourage people on the show to get in touch for questions with Jason and Amanda. And
absolutely, we're always here.
Yeah, and we interview people who have a story to tell in the foster care world or adoption world. So if anybody wants to talk to us, I mean, you can email us. Our email's on the website there at Foster Care Nation. And I mean, you can find us there, and we're always willing to tell somebody's story, because stories are the way that humans connect. And that's what gets people to act and make a difference in our world.
Yep. Well, thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was good. I like that. Now, so I'm going to probably cut it from here. I'm still recording, but I'll probably edit this part out. But can you send me a bio and a picture that you'd like posted?
I can. I don't know. Hang on just a second. I'm going to hit stop video. Does the picture like that work fine for you?
Oh, that's perfect. That's a really good picture.
We had that picture done a few years back, and at Sears or something, and I've hung. I'm like, I cropped it out. Actually, I've got the whole thing cropped out perfectly, and I use it on a lot of stuff because I couldn't take that picture. I'm glad somebody else did.
Yeah, that's a good picture. Yeah.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah. So send me that. Would you like to see the episode before it goes live, or anything, or do you want me just to send you a link?
Huh? Yeah, just send me a link when it goes live. That's fine.
Okay, and then I'm go ahead. I'm sorry.
We have a Facebook group that we put our stuff in, so we can always put a link to it out there, because, I mean, we're all looking for somebody to download our show. I know. Yep.
And just to tell you that, I'm a really new podcaster, so I'm learning as I go. And so if you have any suggestions or anything, I'm all ears. And
are you a Mac or a PC user?
I'm a PC user.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like you better.
Yeah, we're a non-Apple family.
We are too.
Yes, no, yes.
I'm not anti-Apple, but that iOS just doesn't work.
I like to eat apples.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you, Amanda.
My head's not
I don't want to use apples. I want to eat them.
So what do you use to edit your podcast with?
Audacity.
Okay. I use the same thing. I use Audacity, and it works, pretty well.
Any tips or tools that you can share?
Have you used Levelator?
Levelator?
Yep. Hang on. I'm going to minimize my screen so I can look at it and tell you how to spell it properly. It's a free online program. Kind of works similar to it doesn't do the same thing Audacity does.
Okay.
It's free like that. It is Levelator.
So Levelator, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you just Google that, you'll find that program online. And what that does, because I don't know how your setup is, if you're going through through like a mixing board, or if you're just a USB mic into the computer?
Yeah, USB mic into the computer or
Okay. So
headset.
does it
Yeah.
record two separate tracks for you or a single track?
One track.
Okay. See, and I have this super complicated, unnecessarily complicated setup. And mostly because we're running two mics on our end and the
Oh,
only
that's
way to do
right.
that
Yeah.
is to, I've got a whole setup over here. Let's see if I can show you.
Oh,
I've got
wow.
that little board
That's a
there.
lot of buttons there, or a
It
little.
looks like it, but honestly, like all these buttons control this mic.
Oh my
All these
gosh.
buttons control that. And it's just, there's a volume, there's a couple buttons you never touch. There's your 3 EQs, lows,
Yeah.
mids, highs, and then a compressor that I don't really use. And it's got, it's got 4 channels on it there. But this one didn't work properly because I couldn't get both the guest side and my side in. So I had to have that little bitty guy over here. That little guy will actually mix both tracks together. So it was a huge, complicated thing to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. And so you probably have been at this quite a while if you have all that equipment.
No, we started in December.
In December. Wow. You're doing, yeah. So you guys you're really seeming
I had a couple friends of mine. The little box there was given to me by one of my son's friends.
Mm-hmm.
The dad's group I'm in, there was one of the guys in that group who I bought the bigger one off of. Excuse me. So it wasn't terribly complicated. And, if you sit down and look at it, okay, here's a mics go into this hole. I have a main line out, and that goes into the input on this other one. And I had to play around, push buttons, and watch YouTube to figure out how to get that to work. And then once I have it set up, I just leave it.
Yeah.
And the only thing I adjust is the EQs on it. But I can EQ my side, I can EQ their side, but I can't work on their levels as they talk to the mic like this, and then they move away here and they keep.
Oh yeah.
I get the weird sounds. So when I'm done with it, when I get that Audacity file, I export the whole thing as a WAV file.
Mm-hmm.
And I just export it to my desktop.
Oh.
All you got to do is open up Levelator. It opens up a little box, and you just drag and drop that file on top of that box, and it'll put out another file. It's called what that file name was. So if I had a file called Jessica Huckabee, it would be Jessica Huckabee .output is what it would be named, and it levels all your volumes across the board.
Ah, that's good.
So instead of having those waveforms that do this number as you go, it's across the board. You get great sound all the way across.
Ah, very cool. And it's a free software. Okay.
Yep, it's free software. It's I think they call it a compressor.
Okay.
And I know that Audacity has a compressor option in there.
Okay.
I've tried to figure it out just to say I know how to do it.
Mm.
I can make it work a little bit. I can't make it work as good as Levelator does. And Levelator does it for free, and it's super easy.
Okay.
So, I use that. Who's your media host?
I use Anchor.
Anchor, okay.
Yeah.
I've never used Anchor. I don't know much about them.
Okay.
I use Libsyn just because
Libsyn. Okay.
the guy I know who has the the million plus download podcast, he's always been on Libsyn and has had good luck with him. And I went, I think I spend $20 a month for it.
Oh, okay.
$20 isn't going to kill me.
Nah, and they do a lot of they probably do a lot more than Anchor, which is free.
I don't know if they do. You have to set it up and they do some of it. I went in and actually you will find our podcast on almost every platform out there. But I just went and searched. Okay. Every time I'm hear of a new one, Spreaker, Megaphone, I've never heard of these things. But
yeah.
How do I, just Google how to submit RSS to Spreaker. Okay. And then I would just go chase that one down and submit it there. And it just puts it in so many different places. And a lot of those, what they do is they'll use, it's like a database. And then some of the other podcasting platforms will go use their database.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you can put it on, it's kind of like iTunes. When you put it on iTunes, iTunes is not the only person who gets it.
Yeah.
It's distributed out to a lot of those smaller ones. And so, I think we're on iHeartRadio. I can't figure out why Pandora hasn't accepted me yet.
Okay.
But I'm on iHeartRadio. I got it on the Spotify, which, by the way, the two biggest ones I see, Spotify. And iTunes.
Okay.
iTunes is slightly ahead of Spotify in our numbers.
Spotify's really trying to take the market, though, from what I've heard.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. The whole Joe Rogan going to Spotify thing.
Yeah.
Oh, man, everybody in podcast land is all angry about that or happy about it. One of the two. I can't tell.
Yeah. I don't have an opinion on it yet. I'm not. I'm not up there enough.
I don't really, I don't understand. I don't really care too much.
Yeah,
But
as long as it gets out. And
how long
then
have you
you're
been doing it?
couple weeks.
Oh, okay.
I have one episode up, which I need to like probably, add some things. Like I probably should re-release it. So a couple weeks, big
Well,
learning
whatever you
curve.
do,
Yeah.
do not get self-conscious and think you need to go back and fix the old ones.
Okay. So don't, huh?
People need to see, they start listening and they go, oh, look, this has gotten a lot better, and
Okay.
as long as you have consistent content coming out and you have something that interests people.
Yeah.
And I mean, the topic you're in, I mean, you can get stories.
Yeah, I love hearing people. I mean, I could have gone on longer with you guys, but I'm still kind of in that nervous phase, like, oh, I don't want it to be too long. And oh, what if, I have to direct things, so it's not about you, it's about my nerves.
I hear you. Our podcasts usually go between an hour to 2 hours, usually
Oh, wow.
hour and a half. It's usually just right in that,
Because
hour
your
and a half.
content is like pretty detailed stuff. Like
Sometimes.
yeah.
And we've just started to step into getting some interesting people. Are you familiar with what TED is? TED Talks?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
We interviewed a TEDx speaker yesterday.
Wow.
So yeah, him and his wife have been foster parents for a lot of years. He's a doctor. He's he's a PhD, and he has a ranch or like a boys' home, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
And he's got a lot of experience and a lot of stories. Facebook groups are amazing.
Yeah.
There was a post going around. It's this big black guy. I mean, he's got dreads down almost to his waist. Dark skinned black guy, and he's got 3 kids with him who he's adopted, who are all very, very white.
That must be fun.
Yeah,
when they go out in public.
Oh yeah, and
that's good though.
Are you familiar with Love What Matters?
No.
They have a Facebook and Instagram page. They have a lot of interesting stories. That might actually be an interesting place for you to look for guests who've been through a lot of stuff. Love What Matters is a big one, and then I think Pop Sugar is another one that's similar. And we found this post, and it was one that he had written that Love What Matters put out. My wife sent it to me, and come to find out, he's a morning show radio DJ out of Richmond, Virginia, on a nationally syndicated show.
Okay.
Okay, dude knows
the big
how to
black
talk.
guy with dreads, the guy.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So I just sent him an email. Hey, dude, here's who we are. Here's what we do. Would you be interested in talking on telling your story on a podcast? To put your story out there. And 8 hours later, I had a reply. Yeah, sure. Where do I go? Well, and I sent him a link. Have you used Calendly?
Oh, I love that app. I learned about that app last week, I think. I've been using it like crazy.
It's worth the $14 a month or whatever it is for I don't know if they call it the pro or the whatever, but the cheapest paid account, it integrates with Gmail. And so when I send that link to somebody and they sign in, it goes an email to my Gmail, and then it puts a notification on my calendar and sets an alert for me. And I'm like,
that's good. Awesome. Yeah. I use the free version. It does that. And I haven't went to the pro version yet. So
I didn't think the free version would do the calendar out in integration. It might now. I don't know.
It does, I think, because that's how I do it. The one tip that I have, because I'm a traumatic brain injury educator, I have Google alerts. So like your topic is foster. Do you do that with your?
I have a TBRI Google alert, actually.
A TBI Google alert. Okay.
Yeah, TBRI. Yeah. Are you familiar with TBRI?
TBRI. No. Yeah. What is that?
Trust-based relational interventions. Karen Purvis.
TBRI. I'm writing notes.
Yeah.
No, I haven't heard of that.
Karen Purvis is kind of the OG of that whole category. She passed away a couple years ago. So if you want to interview her, you're gonna have a quiet interview.
Too late.
But trust-based relational interventions is what you use with kids who have been through some heavy, significant trauma. Mm-hmm. The idea is that, are you familiar with any of the parenting stuff? Well, do you have kids?
I have a 2-year-old.
Okay. So you understand some of it.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with a kid, Love and Logic is a parenting plan or program.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Okay. Love and Logic.
Love and Logic is a lot about choices and those sorts of choices and consequences and all that. Mm-hmm. The problem is when you have somebody with some significant trauma, especially in either adolescence or early childhood development, that pathway between the amygdala and the rest of the brain gets really worn wide and thick, and it's easy to travel straight to that fight or flight. Mm-hmm. And so what you have to do is you have to find a way, because if you go straight to consequences, look, I don't want to hear anything more about it. You know better. Go stand in the corner. Immediately, you'll see a kid.
Trust, yeah.
You'll see the kid just turn, and they go straight to fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, but if a guy puts a gun in my face, I am not responsible for what happens next.
Yeah.
I may, I'm not above trying to kill somebody who's trying to kill me, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same headspace they go into.
Mm.
And so their choices are not logical choices at that point. It's all about, how do I survive this moment? And so she teaches how, our kids, the first two that we adopted, they
Mm-hmm.
witnessed their father's murder.
Oh, geez.
Oh yeah. At 2
Yeah.
years, 2 and 1 year old, basically.
Do they still have, memories or any kind of experience of it?
Used to, but most of that is kind of gone, but there's still plenty of trauma left there.
Mm-hmm.
The body remembers that trauma. I'm sure, you can see
Yeah,
the
the body.
MRI damages in there, right?
Yeah.
And so it's still there. And so when we see that, I've learned that with my 14-year-old son, when he starts to elevate and I can see him just spiking fast, his anxiety goes up, and I know he's going to fight or flight. And I sit down in my chair here because I'm a foot taller than him. I
Yeah.
sit down in my chair. I said, "Look, bud." And I drop my voice a little bit, and I quiet it down, and I slow my pace, and I start to work on those mirror neurons where I'm just bringing everything down, and I'm letting him get wild, and and he's just, but this, I understand, man, and I start talking. But the thing, what I'm really doing is I'm getting him to mirror some of the things I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting him to understand that, hey, I know you're in this fight or flight moment. You feel like something's about to kill you. I get that. And I'm going to be the person who's going to be calm and patient and not kill you right now.
Yeah.
And just trying to build some of those coping mechanisms, because those neural pathways are built as well. But in his brain, those are like a little two-lane goat path through the woods.
Yeah.
And the anxiety one, that one was a 6-lane highway in his head.
Yeah.
So we've worked for years on rebuilding that. And we're still not quite there yet. If you ever get there with a teenager, I don't know. But we're in a lot better place than we have been.
That's
And it's
good.
been through a lot of that stuff. And so I'm kind of a nerd about that kind of stuff. I love it because you can control so much in these kids with trauma just by changing the way you react. And if you look into the equine therapy models that a lot of people use with kids, we just what was her name? I can't remember her name. It wasn't Carolyn McDermott. It was I don't know. I can't remember her name off the top of my head because her last name was something like Piankowski, and I can't remember her first name. How do you remember the last name?
Dr. Piankowski.
But her, and then another woman, Rebecca Britt, she runs the Stable Moments program. And it's kind of she trains people to do basically that with horses for a lot of the same reasons. And it's amazing how that works because horses are prey animals.
Yeah.
They're herd animals. And so you take a herd animal that's also a prey animal, and you look at them, and you look at kids who've been hurt, and they're also like prey animals. They're also like herd animals. And you put them in that, and you allow them to learn how to respond with that horse. And it begins to teach them that we can communicate together without words, without the excitement. And it's an amazing thing. I've known quite a few people who've had a hand in those programs. So I love those ideas. But I'm a nerd about all that stuff because that's what makes a difference.
My friend Lori Halliday, she's up in the Santa Cruz Mountains in California, and she does equine therapy.
Okay.
And there's with kids, foster kids.
Really?
It's Horse and Heart. I'll connect you on Facebook.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, because that would be awesome because we've had a couple people talk about that, and I think that's a really powerful thing for people across the nation. I mean, Rebecca Britt's in Florida, and the other gal.
Yeah, and you're in Missouri, but they must have some farms out there that do the equine therapy.
Certainly do. We haven't found any locally. We haven't really gone and looked for any locally. I have 7 kids.
Yeah, you probably don't have the time. It's a lot of time.
Now, my 14-year-old son, his therapy, when this COVID isn't happening, is to strap on some pads and a helmet and go run into things.
My gosh.
He loves to play football.
Yeah.
And all I can say is don't get in his way.
Okay. That's cool. that helps him get it out, get out that frustration.
He's not a big kid.
Yeah.
I have seen him take kids a foot taller than him and just take them off their feet. I think he's able to reach down into that rage on the inside and be able to just
focus it,
just go.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's able to change that for a different path, and it's wonderful that he can do that. So, nice. I mean, and kind of half expect this kid to go to school on a scholarship at some point.
That's good. That's
He's
really
going,
good.
well, last year he was in 8th grade. At the end of the end of his 8th grade football season, the high school varsity coaches were talking to him about playing varsity his freshman year.
Wow.
So I'm like, they see something. The kids
Yeah,
do
nourish that. Make sure his head's always protected, though,
Yeah.
from a TBI
Oh
educator
yeah.
point of view.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you, because he is super involved in that, but he likes to play safety, and so he's not up in the middle of the big heavy hitters usually. So that's good.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just protect that brain.
I hear you. Yeah,
But
I
I
should
know.
send my older son to talk. He's had more brain injury.
Concussion. Yeah.
More concussions than I can count.
Well, concussion is just mild brain injury. So concussion means the same as a brain injury.
Yeah.
That's what I teach TBI 101 and TBI 102. And then I teach the military medics and corpsmen about how to diagnose, how to treat a head injury, and then how to progressively return people to activity. So I do the trainings for the military. So
Okay. Well, where are you at?
I'm sorry?
Where are you based out of?
I'm based out of the Palo Alto VA. So Northern California.
Okay.
And I have an uncle in Missouri, but so I've been to Missouri. I know it a little bit. But yeah, I go to Travis is out here. We have I have a coworker that does Camp Pendleton military base, and we have Monterey, and
I was at Monterey.
Oh yeah, you were at Monterey. So you were in the military.
Yeah, I was stationed at DLI out in Monterey.
Okay, yeah, I was just there a couple months ago.
Oh, really? Beautiful.
Yeah.
Is it as pretty as it always was?
Oh, gorgeous. It's beautiful. Yeah.
I'm one of those weird people you'll find who has a, let's see, I can get it where you can see it. I have an Asian tattoo on my arm that I can actually read.
Cool.
Yeah, because, most people go, this means good luck. And I'm like, yeah, right, it does.
Uh-huh. They fooled you.
Yeah, that was a tattoo artist in Alabama told you that meant something.
Uh-huh. That's funny.
But no, I was a Korean linguist when I was in the Army. So.
Oh, very cool. Yeah,
I
it's
learned
gorgeous.
Korean out there. It's a beautiful place. If you want good Korean food, Monterey's a place to get some.
Oh, that's good to know. I love Korean food. Yeah.
It's
we're
by
we're
far
really
the
lucky.
best of all the Asian cuisines, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like Korean food, and they have good beer. Cloud, I think is Korean beer. Well, you don't drink anymore, so I won't talk about beer. But
I wasn't really old enough at the time. No, I wasn't quite 21 when I was out there. But yeah, I was a soldier, so I was broke. So I drank Bud Light, Busch Light.
Yeah, whatever you could get.
Natural Light, whatever was cheap.
Yeah. Well, if you ever know of anybody who wants to learn more about brain injury or has any questions, or people that are working with kids that may have had a concussion and how to get them back into school, we also produce those guides, and they're all free from our group. So I'll put in the chat notes our website so you guys can see in case you have any.
All right. I'll just
how to explain TBI to kids, like if someone's parents changed because of a brain injury, how to explain that to the kids.
Oh yeah.
And based on the age they're at and the level of development. So, which is really important.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
I will copy that right over here so I don't lose it. But
cool. Well, it's good. Yeah.
I don't know if your world really reaches into what we're doing with kids who with PTSD, but not physical, like injury from banging your head on something. We deal with
trauma.
Trauma stuff. I don't know if that's something that you talk about much, but I mean, if you think that would fit into your expertise category, I mean, we'd be more than happy to have you come on and.
Yeah. Let me put some thought into that, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
And I'll I'll shoot you an email.
Yeah, I've got a Calendly link. So.
Okay, good.
But
nice.
And we usually record on Sundays and Mondays. It just so happens right now, pandemic world, that's got my job a little slow. So I'm getting Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday off.
Okay.
I'm kind of loving it because I'm only working like 45 hours a week now.
Oh my gosh.
Instead of 55 or 60.
Oh my goodness. And then you have the kids at home.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'll be honest. I'd rather be at home with the kids than I would be at work most days.
Yeah. Kids are fun. Oh, I'm so enjoying having a 2-year-old. She's great. They're so much fun. Kids are so much. If someone would have told me, it's probably better I didn't have kids too young, but
Oh, we
But
did. We did.
yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't have been as good of a parent back then, but
Absolutely. My son
patience
who's home
and
right now, I've told him more times than they can count. But you got the worst parents of all your siblings. I didn't know anything. Like some doctor sent you home and they didn't tell us nothing.
yeah,
Like
there's
they
no,
forgot to tell us that we were idiots with a kid, right? We
yeah,
didn't know what the heck we're doing. And so we just, we just pushed through. And now by the time, our oldest he turns 22 here this week, I think. And our
yeah,
youngest is 5, just turned 5. And I'm like, Frankie and Turtle are 2 younger ones. I'm like, those 2 are going to have the best parents of the group. Like I'm
because
going
you're
to
more
have all
calm
kinds
and
of,
patient.
yeah, knowledge, wisdom. I have a lot deeper thought process. I'm going to be
Yeah,
at this at a whole different angle. They're going to have it so good. And they're going to whine and complain. And you're going to want to thump them and say, you don't know how bad we had it when I was a kid.
yeah. They
And
didn't
I'm
know anything
laughing.
back then.
I'm going to laugh and tell you that you're old.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
well, it's really good talking to you. I'll introduce you to Love and Lodge, not Love and Horse and Heart is Lori's equine therapy in Santa Cruz Mountains. So if you ever get out here, you'll know who she is. I'll introduce you through email
Awesome.
or
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
don't say that too loud to my wife, or she'll make me take her out to California.
Oh yeah. Well, you'll have to let me know because I'll have coffee with you or come meet you or something.
There you go. I
Yeah.
just don't know if I want to drive that far with 7 kids,
Oh
or
no.
pay to fly
Yeah.
7 kids that far.
And yeah, exactly. That's expensive, even driving that far.
She heard
So
me from the other room and says, I'm not flying.
nope. The drive is nice though. So
Yeah.
maybe you'll make it out someday.
All right. Well, it was great talking with you.
Okay. Take
We'll talk
care.
to you soon. Yep. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.